Just started the meeting.
Okay. From what I gather, today we're going to be discussing the nomination of the elected charter review chairperson. Is that correct?
Well, do we have comments from the public we need to discuss?
Do we?
Corey, do we have recorded comments? Can you unmute?
We have no recorded comments this evening.
Okay, and we had one written comment which was distributed in advance. And Corey, did you just turn on the recording just when you announced that? And if so, then we need to re-announce the quorum. Can you unmute?
Sorry, I started it right at 5:30. My apologies, everybody.
Okay, so the meeting was called to order by Vice Chair Angela Torres. We did confirm that we had a quorum present with Angela Torres, Rabbi Cohen, Vicki Lee, Phil Savage, Paul Sanborn, all present this evening. And absent, we have Susan Green-Ditzler and Jesse Morfin are absent, and 2 vacancies with Ward 1 and Ward 5 for the record. All right, we can proceed. Sorry.
Very well. Going back to our discussion, we're actually going to start off with the consented calendar. The review and approval for the minutes of February 18th to 2020 meeting. Everybody has those?
I'll move approval.
Yes.
I second it.
Second.
Okay. Very well. The next one will be the discussion nominating an elected charter review committee chairperson
Madam
for
Vice
2021.
Madam Vice Chair, if I may, there was a
Yes.
first and a second, but we didn't actually vote to approve the minutes, so I would ask if you could call for a vote.
Very well. Let's call for a vote.
So we'll just quickly go through Angela Torres.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Vice Chair Torres, do you have a okay? Rabbi Cohen?
You're asking for approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Committee member Vicki Lee?
Yes.
Committee member Phil Savage?
Yes.
Committee member Paul Sanborn?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Can we move on?
Yes, we can move on to a discussion, which is nomination and election of the Charter Review Committee's chairperson for 2021.
For the chairperson, I'd like to nominate Angela Torres.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you, Paul.
I wanted to nominate you. for
Oh, you
chair.
want to nominate me?
Yes.
Well, great. I would like to nominate you too.
I would like to make I'm not sure what the appropriate procedure, but I'd like to get to know the people that are on the committee, or at least see background so I know them, because very few of them I had prior contact. I'd like to defer the actual vote on a chair until, and you just continue as the acting chair, Angela, and we can get till we could get a background, resumes, and maybe have a presentation by people so we know them better before we're voting for who should be the chair.
I'm
Good
sorry,
idea.
I barely understand you right now. I'm trying to get my settings up to a higher volume. And 1 second. Okay, can anybody speak?
So, Vice Chair Torres, can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you now.
All right, perfect. So committee member Savage had indicated that he would like to continue the appointment of the chair and vice chair until the next meeting, and have those that have been nominated, if they're willing to accept the nomination, their resumes be shared with the body so that those can be reviewed ahead of a nomination. It'll be up to the majority of the committee if that's your preference, or if you would like to proceed with nomination and appointment of your chair and vice chair for this year.
This is Vicki Lee. I agree with him.
Yeah, I think so. I pretty much know that. I think we will do justice there. So yes, that'll be great.
So perhaps if we could go ahead and do we want to take a motion to continue this, but also to present nominations and get confirmation from those that are being nominated for consideration, if they're willing to accept? And Albert, will that work?
Yes, that would work.
Okay. So before we take a motion to continue these two items, which would be item 2 and 3, which is the chair and the vice chair, it sounds like we had a nomination from Committee Member Sanborn to appoint Vice Chair Torres as the chair for this year. And Vice Chair Torres nominated Paul Sanborn. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Okay.
I would like to place the nomination, the name of Phil Savage.
And just to get a verbal commitment, Mr. Sanborn, Mr. Savage, and Vice Chair Torres, would you be willing to accept those nominations if you were elected?
I am.
Myself, truthfully, I would like to see us wait and see if we can't fill 1 and 5, and then go for the chairperson.
Okay.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Does anybody else agree with me on that?
I guess I didn't follow what you said, Paul.
Neither did I.
Ward 1 is vacant and Ward 5 is vacant. I would like to see those two filled up by the next meeting and whatnot, to where, you know.
I agree. That's a good idea.
I
Okay.
agree too.
I agree as well.
Okay. Sounds like we have consensus. Albert, do we need to go ahead and still take a motion to continue both items?
Yes, that would be my recommendation.
All right.
First, a second, and then a roll call vote.
So do we have a motion to continue items 1 and 2, which is the election?
So moved.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Okay, are there any objections? Hearing none, it appears that the motion passes with all members present supporting the continuation of both items 2 and 3.
Very well.
Okay.
Could I just make one comment about, I was contacted by Councilperson Charette, I'm his appointee. Somehow he missed the filling my spot, but he intends to fill it at the next council meeting and have me reappointed as his representative for Ward 4. So just in case there was any question about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for confirmation.
Somehow it got past him. I'm not sure why.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so if it's okay, we can move on to item number 4, which is the staff report that was presented. And if you will allow it through the chair, I will go ahead and just do a brief overview of what was contained, which is really just a procedural summary of the role of the committee and what's contained in the charter and the process for presenting a charter amendment.
Very well, thank you.
Okay. All right, I think most of you are aware, having served with the committee for some time, although we do have a few newer members, and it's been some time since we've met, so we thought it would be good just to go back over the process involved in a charter change so that you had an idea about how it can be changed, what your specific role is as a member of the advisory committee appointed by the council. To adhere to a portion of the charter provision, which is in Article 10, Section 1001, which we'll go over in a little bit. And then, of course, Council had recently asked for the same information in a summary and gave direction that they would like staff to start working on a specific charter amendment that will transition the full-time mayor's position to a part-time position. Staff will be preparing that as directed by the council for presentation and consideration for possible placement on the June of 2020 primary ballot. So we'll go through that just so that you have a general idea about what's happening, and then certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we can talk about next steps and what the committee would like to do in terms of other recommendations that they would like council to consider in 2022 or beyond.
I had a question concerning the action by the council to have the mayor's position changed to not be elected at large. I cannot find text discussing that any place. Can we get that text? Because I guess I'm concerned that the committee should be involved in that. And I think it seems to me I saw someplace that it was to be done regardless of this committee. And I'm a little bothered if this committee is going to have input, that it should have input on the discussion of that issue.
So the mayor or the council specifically gave direction that they wanted staff to prepare something, and so we will at council's direction. The committee certainly can make a recommendation that in terms of how your thoughts on that particular charter amendment. There's still time for that, but per council's direction, we will be preparing something. That's not to say that the committee cannot weigh in on your thoughts in terms of that particular component within the charter, but it is something that we have been given direction by the council to do. So I'll kind of go over that with my overview and the process and what we're looking at in terms of timing. But the committee can still weigh in terms of your thoughts on that, but whether or not, it is already something that council's given us direction to start working on. So.
But it's not on our agenda, and the actual language of what those instructions I'd like to be able to review as well.
Certainly, as we get closer to preparing something for consideration, the committee will have an opportunity to look at that and give their thoughts on that. It is something we have not prepared to the language at this point in time, so there is nothing for you to review. We just wanted you to be aware that at the last council meeting, that was May 19th, that the council did give that direction. So that's something that we will
it's the language of that direction that I wanted to see.
Sure. And we have not done any work on that yet.
You're not answering my question. I understand you haven't done anything. I simply would like to see the language, the council's action to direct you, because I'd like to have that input before this committee.
Sure. And as we get something drafted, we'll make sure that we're sharing that with you and the council.
I would like to, I could have a comment. First of all, you did in your introduction of your staff report mention that we were the advisory committee, and I think it's now not the advisory committee, but it's the commission charter review, but that's neither here nor there. I would like to suggest that since we voted to delay election of a chairperson, etc., until the 2 spots are filled and everybody can participate, I would think it makes sense for us to delay any action of this whole question of the charter, amending the charter, until we have a full commission.
And that's perfectly fine. I assume that you would kind of like me to walk through the process and the information that was provided to you in terms of the procedure, just so you have a sense of timing, and that's really what we were looking to do today.
But I think it would be premature to take any action. Right.
Rebecca,
Yes, Mr. Sanborn.
what happened to Vicky Lee?
I saw that. I was going to mention that too. Thank you.
She's here. Vicky Lee is here. She's just not on camera right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Speak up, everybody.
I'm not camera ready this evening, you all.
Oh.
All right, so I'm just going to go through the highlights. Like I say, you've got the staff report that really goes over all of the details. I'm happy to answer any additional questions you have. And then at the next meeting, we can talk about next steps. Hopefully we will have members appointed for the 1st and 5th wards by that time frame that will help us to move forward. So
in September?
If following what your regular meeting schedule, so at your last meeting, you'd indicated that you wanted your regular committee meetings to be held on a quarterly basis. That would be
That's
September.
correct.
Yeah, that's not our agenda item on the discussing meeting schedule is after this, that you're going to give us our report. I think we may want to meet sooner than September, but if we're doing that, we may need to have it be by Zoom, and we ought to have that discussion at some time.
Well, and as of June or July 1st, all of our meetings will be going back to in-person meetings. We will start back with in-person meetings.
And I need to say that July and August will be very difficult for me to attend in person, but I could attend for Zoom. And if we could have a way that that could be accommodated, I would appreciate it.
All right, so let me just go through the highlights of the staff report, and then certainly address any additional questions, and then we can talk about your regular meeting schedule, and if you want to deviate from what you have currently in place, which is the quarterly meetings on the first Tuesday of the month. So, of course, the city's charter, as I'm sure you all are aware at this point in time, serves as the city's constitution and can only be amended. And if I could ask everyone to mute, or maybe Corey as the host, if you could mute everybody but me at this point in time, just so we don't get that feedback. Thank you. All right, so the city's current charter was adopted in November 8th of 2016 and became effective when it was filed with the California Secretary of State in July or January of 2017, January 31st of 2017. As I'd mentioned previously, Article 10, Section 1001 of the city charter requires the city establish a process to ensure the periodic review of the charter to identify potential amendments that enhance clarity, efficiency, and the principle of a council-manager form of government. And then the way that the council addressed this periodic review was to establish this body, which is the Charter Review Committee, is the mechanism by which the mayor and council would adhere to that provision of the charter. Under state law, there are a number of ways in which the charter amendment can be considered or brought forward. The first being that the Charter Review Committee can recommend amendments for consideration by the mayor and council. The city council can have a draft amendment prepared with or without input or recommendation by the Charter Review Committee. And then, of course, the third option would be a citizen-led initiative petition signed by 15% of the city's registered voters, in which we've verified compliance with election code, can be filed for placement on the ballot. So those are the three primary ways that a ballot initiative amending the charter can be considered. Under state law, charter amendments can only be proposed by voters at a statewide primary election, a statewide general election, or at the city's general municipal election if it is different from the two previous dates. In our case, that's not the case. So the next primary election will be June 7th of 2022, and the next statewide general election will be November 8th of 2022. And our municipal elections are held at the same time, so those will align. More, it's important to note that charter amendments that will affect city employees or retiree rights can only be placed on a statewide general election ballot in November. So in that case, if they affect employment of any kind, they would not be eligible to be placed on the primary election. And then a council or committee proposed charter amendment must be called for the ballot at least 95 days before a scheduled election, while a citizen-led initiative amendment must be called at least 88 days before the next scheduled election. So in our case, if we were looking at 2022, council, so we would have had to have the amendment prepared with all of the required resolutions and adopted and ready for delivery to the county registrar by November 4th of 2022 for the June 7th, 2022 election. And if we were looking at the general election, which would be in November, that deadline would be August 5th, 2022, would be the filing deadline for November 8th of 2022. And then those dates are slightly different with a citizen initiative, which provided those dates for you. But for the purposes of this committee, of course, that doesn't apply. Depending on the type of charter amendment, as I mentioned, for further analysis or negotiation may be required. I'd mentioned the situation in which if it affects employment, that we would need to go through a meet and confer process. If we were to propose an amendment that affected land use or development, the city would also need to go through a CEQA analysis before placing the amendment on the ballot. So those would be two things that we would need to consider, and additional time would be need to back into those types of changes if they were to be approved by council. As discussed earlier, on April 7th, the City Council requested staff prepare an overview of the process required to amend the city charter, similar to the report I've just given you that was provided to the Mayor and Council on May 19th of 2021. And after receiving that report on the process required to make an amendment, staff was asked by the majority of the council to prepare a charter amendment that would transition from a full-time mayor to a part-time mayor for placement on the June primary election, of which would be June 7th, 2022 ballot. And we have yet to start any of that work or prepare language, but that is something based on council's direction that we will be preparing. So that's just in a summary, the process and the timeline, just so that you have a sense of that. And I'd be happy to address any questions that any of the members of the committee may have at this point in time. Mr. Savage? It looks like you're muting. Did you have a comment to make, Mr. Savage? Okay, Corey, can you unmute Mr. Okay, there.
I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. I would like to have the committee discuss the issue of the council's of the process where the council proposes charter amendments without it being reviewed by the charter committee. I think that we have been selected to try to be an important involvement, and I would like to express back to the council that we would appreciate their process going through us rather than around us, whether for the future and the issue presently before us.
So, Mr. Savage, are you asking to have a motion to prepare a staff report or a report back to the council making a recommendation? Is that what you're asking at this stage?
I guess what my recommendation would be that we pass a resolution asking the council to submit any and all charter review proposals to this committee before putting it directly on the ballot. That would be a process to keep this committee involved. Anyway, that's the essence of my my motion.
Would someone want to second that? And I think, Mr. Savage, just to add, I think you will have an opportunity to weigh in on anything that is presented for recommendation to the council. They've certainly given us direction to prepare something, but that doesn't prohibit you from weighing in or reviewing the amendment change for consideration so that the committee's recommendation is included. But if you would like to make a formal motion and have something that's in writing to the council.
I would like to, if the committee is so inclined, to request that the council submit all charter recommendations to the committee before finalizing any process to get it put to the voters.
I'll second that.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and just take a voice vote so that I know if we have support, and I will prepare something and bring it back to the next meeting so you can review that for your blessing, and then we will provide that to the mayor and council for review. All right, so Vice Chair Torres?
Yes.
Rabbi Cohn,
Yes.
Vicky Lee,
Yes.
Phil Savage,
Yes,
Paul Sanborn,
He's muted.
Unmute.
Paul, you need to unmute.
Corey, can you unmute him, please?
I can't actually unmute him from my host position. But I can run over there and handle it.
Oh, it looks like he's unmuted now. Mr. Sanborn, can you hear us?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, we can hear you now. Did you agree with that? Did you want to vote yes or no?
Well, it's a yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, very good. And so the motion passes. Okay.
Do we have any, excuse me, do we have any idea of when the other two seats will be filled for this commission?
I don't. We did follow up with both the First Ward council member and the Fifth Ward, and did ask them to make sure that they got someone appointed as quickly as possible. So hopefully within the next month, but I don't have a date yet.
And in regard, if we get them appointed before next September, I would encourage that this committee at least have a Zoom meeting, if no other, and have a virtual meeting in July or August rather than waiting till September.
So perhaps doing a special meeting?
I was gonna say. That sounds good, if we can do that.
So perhaps looking at maybe August?
Yeah, for either July or August, it's very unlikely that I can attend in person, but if it could be a virtual meeting, I can attend.
Okay, so as soon as we have those seats filled, we can poll for availability and see if we could get a quorum for a special meeting, provided there are no objections from the body present today. No objections, I don't hear any, so we'll proceed with that, and we will proceed with the regular meeting still being quarterly on the first Tuesday of that month. Okay.
I just was able to get into my computer, get the papers I was referring to. So, Phil, this report, the staff report document that I mentioned earlier, dated June 1, 2021, the very last page of that staff report is the one that has the date of December 20th, 2021, and it should have been 2017. You were asking where I was referring to.
What page is it? I'm sorry, what page?
It's on the staff report that was issued June 1. It's page 4 of that, the last page, the date at the top, 2021, and it should be 2017 or 2016.
You are correct. I see that. We'll make that correction for the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Hate to be pedantic, but
No, that's important. Dates are important.
Yes, they are.
All right. Perfect.
May I make one other suggestion on procedure, is that we all be reaching out between now and our next meeting and provide to Rebecca any thoughts and ideas we have or that have been presented to us for possible charter amendments so that we can review them in advance.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
All right. Very good. We will reach back out to you. Corey will be in contact in terms of pulling for a special meeting as soon as we get those positions filled. and also welcoming any feedback that you would like to provide in advance that we can distribute as part of our agenda packet. All right, so that takes us through item number 5, and then I guess now we're on to item number 6, Vice Chair Torres. Which would
We're on
be
5, Rebecca, to discuss the regular meeting schedule. Unless there was something more to discuss beyond the special meeting. If not, then yeah, we just need a motion to adjourn.
I think I heard that the committee was comfortable with sticking with their regular meetings being quarterly, but to possibly hold that special meeting.
I need to say no to that. Only specifically my councilman and who appointed me and I had a discussion today, and he would very strongly encourage this committee to meet more regularly than just quarterly. At least initially, to see what all we're going to be reviewing and deciding. I think it's a good idea. But we need to have subjects to be discussing. We don't want to meet just to meet. But I know I've heard various people say they have ideas that they're wanting to have our committee consider for charter amendment, and we need to get those before us and sort out how we're going to deal with them. And I think maybe we might have meetings more frequently than quarterly for that purpose.
So perhaps we could, at our next meeting, re-agendize the meeting schedule when we have the full body present.
Yes, I believe that's great.
Okay.
That's good.
So we'll make sure that's re-agendized for discussion. Okay.
Make a motion for adjournment.
All right.
Did you hear me?
Yes, we did, Mr. Sanborn. Thank you. I appreciate the motion for adjournment.
Excuse me, whoops. I'm just looking at my calendar. The first Tuesday in September is September 7th. That happens to be one of the days of the Jewish High Holy Days. And I wonder whether, you might consider changing that first Tuesday in September to maybe the second Tuesday or the day after. Just a possibility. It would not be an impossibility because our day, the holy day ends, but it does conflict with the Jewish High Holy Days.
Okay. I think we could do that if we re-agendize and try to do a special meeting in July or August. Will be our target to try and do the first, probably not the first Tuesday in July. It would be a later meeting date, so we'll pull for another alternate date, or the first Tuesday in August is a possibility. And then we can try and reset, so I'll re-agendize the regular meeting schedule, and then we can evaluate moving a September meeting if the decision is to meet more frequently.
Good.
I think that'll work.
Does that seem okay? Will that work for you, Rabbi Cohen? Okay.
Yes.
We'll make sure that we make note of that conflict. Okay, so Mr. Sanborn gave a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Assuming there are no objections, I think we're adjourned to the next special meeting, date to be determined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all.